Jack the Giant Killer. Many years ago, in the time of King Arthur, there lived a giant named Cormoran, who was the terror of all the country of Cornwall. He was 18 feet tall and at least 9 feet around the middle, and he had a tremendous appetite. He would kill a half-dozen cows and as many sheep and pigs, and carry them all home for one meal. All the country folk were greatly alarmed, for if this went on for long, the whole of Cornwall would be laid bare. They tried hiding their farm animals, but then the giant Cormoran carried off the people themselves for food. So the country folk let him take their cattle as he pleased, for no one dared fight the 18-foot giant. Now at this same time there lived in Cornwall a young boy named Jack, who determined to slay the giant. Since he knew he could not kill him by force, he made up his mind to kill him by trickery. So one night Jack set off alone and went boldly up to the mountain where the giant lived. He took with him a dark lantern, a hunting horn, an axe, and a shovel. In the middle of the path that led to the giant's cave, Jack dug a pit 20 feet deep and 20 feet wide and 20 feet long. Then he covered the pit with branches and dirt. When the hole was thus cleverly hidden, Jack took out his horn, blew a loud blast, and then quickly hid behind a tree. The giant started from his sleep, roaring with anger. "Who dares wake me so early in the morning?" he bellowed. Jumping up from his bed, he rushed out of the cave, shouting furiously, "Whoever you are, I'll boil you for breakfast!" Still roaring, the giant plunged on down the path, hunting his tormentor. Suddenly, he stepped on the covering of the pit. Down he fell. Jack sprang from his hiding place, clodding the giant on the head with the axe, and that was the end of the giant Cormoran. The country folk sang and danced for joy at the giant's death. They gave Jack a wonderful sword, and from then on he was known from one end of the country to the other as Jack the Giant Killer. Of course, with a name like that, Jack was the enemy of every evil giant alive. It was not long until another giant heard of him and swore to take revenge on him. Jack knew that he must kill this Welsh giant or he would be killed himself. Since trickery had worked so well the first time, Jack wanted to try it again. But of course he couldn't use the same trick, so he decided to visit the Welsh giant, who had never seen Jack and would not recognize him, and see what trick he could think of to do away with the evil fellow. When he came to the giant's castle, Jack marched up to the door, knocked politely, and asked the giant to give him a night's lodging. The giant seemed cordial enough, and invited Jack to come in. But there was a certain sly look in the giant's eye that Jack didn't like, and when Jack saw the pile of human bones on the giant's fireplace, he knew that he would have to think fast, or his own would soon be among them. On the table before the fireplace was a dish with 4 gallons of mush and milk in it. The giant set another of these huge dishes before Jack. "Get away with this if you can," he said. Not wishing the giant to think it was too much for him, Jack ate what he could and secretly poured the rest into a leather bag he had hidden under his shirt. When the dishes were empty, Jack challenged the giant to a contest of skill. "Faugh!" sneered the giant. "Whatever you can do, I can do much better." "So?" said Jack. "Then do this." And he drew out his sword and split open the leather bag as if it were his stomach. Out tumbled all the mush and milk. The giant, not to be outdone by an ordinary man, slit his own stomach, and of course fell to the floor dead. Then Jack left the castle and made his way to King Arthur's court. There he lived for some time. One day Jack learned that the king's son was very unhappy because the princess he wished to marry had been bewitched by the giant Gallicanta and carried off to his castle in the form of a deer. Of course, Jack had no choice but to go to the giant's castle in search of the princess. After traveling a long time, he came to a castle guarded by 2 ferocious monsters, with heads of eagles and bodies of lions. Jack slipped into the invisible cloak he had brought along and passed by the monsters unnoticed. When he entered the castle, the first thing that caught his eye was a golden hunting horn hanging on the wall. Beneath it were these words: "Whoever doth this trumpet blow shall cost the giant's overthrow." Jack seized the trumpet and blew a great blast. The terrible monsters fell down dead, and suddenly Jack found himself surrounded by a throng of animals, big and little. Among them was a beautiful, sad-eyed deer. She looked at Jack and then walked away. Jack followed her and soon found himself in the room where Gallicanta slept. Quick as breath, Jack drew his sword and cut off the giant's head. As he did so, the deer became the princess, and all the other animals became their human selves again. Shouting and singing for joy, they all marched back to the court of King Arthur. The prince and the princess were married, and Jack himself married the daughter of a duke. King Arthur gave him a fine castle and rich farmlands as a reward, and there Jack and his wife lived in great contentment and happiness for many a year. The end.